Hello everybody, in this video we are going to continue the conversation of how to determine the solution set to a system of inequalities. So the first thing I want to point out about this example right here is that notice that both of our inequalities are already solved for y. We don't have to do absolutely nothing to get them ready for us to graph. They are ready to go because we can see the slope, we can see the y-intercept. And so notice that on my screen, I've already done that. So my y-intercept is -1. And notice that these all have a little 1 for equation 1, y-intercept 1, slope 1. They all go together. So you know that when I graph this out, I'm going to go ahead and label it line 1. All right, so my slope, there's an understood 1 here, so I'm going to go ahead and write my slope is 1, but in order for us to do rise over run, we have to do 1 over 1. And then I went ahead and did the opposite slope, which is -1 over -1. So we're changing the sign on both of these. If you look at the second equation, we said 2 is our y-intercept. Our slope is -1 over 2, and then the opposite is +1 over -2. All right, with that being said, let's go ahead and graph the first one. Let's start with our y-intercept. So on your y-axis, find -1. And then from here, we're going to go up 1 and to the right 1. So we're going to go up 1 and to the right, and you're going to notice that if you keep on going up and over, it's going to form this line right here. Remember, our opposite slope is to form the line in the other direction. So that tells us to go down 1 and to the left 1. So if you do that, it's going to look like this. And then you can start forming that line using that same pattern. All right, so now that I see what my graph is going to look like, let's go ahead and graph it out. So take your straight edge, whatever you have, and let's graph this line. Now before you do, let me remind you of something. This is not an equation, not an equation. So remember, you have to look at your symbol and ask yourself, solid or dotted, and then ask yourself, are we shading above or below? So this one is a greater than symbol, and it has an equal to line. So this is going to be a solid line. So I'm going to write solid right here. And because it's greater than, we're going to say above. So I like to write all this stuff out before I actually do the graph, because then I can just focus on getting my graph right. So let's go ahead and draw a solid line through these dots. And I go all the way through and through. I'll put a little 1 here. And then from here, we're shading above. So we still have some questions about where is above. I don't understand when to shade above or below or where that represents. So you want to go back to your y-intercept and you want to ask yourself, look at your y-axis, look at your y-intercept. Where are the numbers above or greater than -1? So everything above -1 is right here. And notice that this is on this side of the equation. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take whatever color I'm using for that line. Not only am I going to color code the line, but I'm going to shade everything above. I'm going to use vertical lines. And then you're going to see what I'm going to do with the second one to make that double shaded region more apparent. So let's go ahead and color code the line because it's solid, and then shade everything above. All right, so as you can tell, I shaded everything above this line. This looks like what we were doing last week when we were just solving one inequality on a graph. But because this is a system, we're going to do both of these lines. And then we're going to look for the section of the graph that wasn't shaded one time, but was shaded twice. So let's go ahead and graph this out. So we can already see that our y-intercept is a +2. So let's find +2 on the y-axis. Now remember, we always start on the y-axis, never the x. This is a y-intercept. All right, our slope here tells us that we're going to go down 1 and to the right 2. Down 1, right 2. So let's go down 1 and to the right. Now, If these were equation, we'd be looking for the point of intersection. That's not what we're looking for. We're looking for a whole section of the graph. So we can ignore this part and continue to go down 1 and right 2. Okay. I'm actually going to use my opposite slope, which is up 1 and to the left 2. So go back to your y-intercept and let's go up 1 and to the left 2 to create the other side of the graph. Like that. Now, before we connect these dots, I do want to remind you to look at your symbol. So our symbol for this one, once again, solid or dotted, we can see that it does have an equal to line. So this one is going to be a solid line as well. So 2 solid lines. Now, our symbol is different. This one was greater than, this one is less than. So we're going to shade below because we're going to be looking for all the numbers that are below or less than our y-intercept. And that's going to be the 2. So here is our y-intercept. And let's go ahead and create that solid line. And then let's look to see where we're going to shade that would be below the 2. So I'm going to draw a solid line. I'm going to label it 2, like that. This is line 2, inequality 2. And then here is my y-intercept, and if I look at the y-axis, I can see that all the numbers that are below 2 would be down here. So that means I'm going to be shading everything below this line. So I'm going to go ahead and change the direction of the lines I'm drawing. So these ones were vertical. Let me do some horizontals so you can actually see the contrast. So I'm going to be shading everything down here with a horizontal line. So I'm going to find the color that I'm using for line 2 and shade that graph. All right, so I went ahead and highlighted the entire line because it is a solid line. So I went ahead and shaded that or highlighted it. And then notice that I did change the direction of my line. You can clearly see by looking at this graph, this little area right here is completely blank. So that means all the points that are located here will not be true for either one of these. If you look at this top section right here, up here on the top, the pink section, you'll find that these points up here would be true for this one, but not this one. And then if you look at the bottom where we have just the green part is shaded, then that means that every single point in this section right here would be true for the green line, but not the pink line. It would be false for this one. But what we're looking for is the solution set that would make it true for both. And so if you look at this section right here, you have a little bit of pink, you have a little bit of green. So that tells us that every single point in this little area right here, the double shaded region, would be true for both of these. So that's all. That's it. That's all we have to do. We don't have to say anything. We just need to make sure that this is noticeably the double shaded region. You're more than welcome to come in with a different color. You're more than welcome to make a little arrow and say, this is my solution set, but it needs to be apparent that this is true for both of those lines. There's no need to plug anything in. This is your answer. All right, let's go ahead and look at another example, the one below it. All right, so as you can see, our second example does have 2 inequalities, but they are not ready for us to graph. So if you look right here, this is not in slope-intercept form, neither is this one. So we're actually going to have to take both of these and solve them for y. So with that being said, I know when they're stacked like this, it doesn't give us a whole lot of room to actually solve it for y. So I'm actually going to rewrite this first one down here, and then I'm going to take this one and kind of write it over to the side, and then write down solid, dotted, y-intercept, slope. So let's go ahead and do that first one together. All right, so for this one, remember we're solving for y. The only way to get the y by itself is to take this 2x and subtract it from both sides. Because it has an x, we can't combine it with a 6. So this becomes 0, and we have 3y is greater than equal to 6 minus 2x. Now we still need to get rid of the 3. The 3 and the y are being multiplied, so let's divide every number here by 3. Because it's a positive 3, we are not flipping our inequality symbol. It's going to stay the same. So we have y is greater than equal to 2. This will not simplify, so we'll leave it as 2 over 3x. So I'm actually going to use the space on the side to say that our y, this is going to be y1, our first y-intercept is a positive 2. Our first slope is negative 2 over 3. The opposite slope would be positive 2 over negative 3. So when I say opposite slope, I'm just asking you to change the sign on the top and the bottom. Okay. And then from here, if you look at your inequality symbol, we can see that it's going to be a solid line because it has an equal sign. And that is greater than. So we are going to shade above positive 2, our y-intercept. Okay. So with that, let's go ahead and do the math for the other one, and then we'll come back and do our graphs together. So I'm going to draw a line here just to create a little bit of separation because a lot of the work can get mixed up. But what I'm going to ask you to do is notice the 2 doesn't have a number. Go ahead and give it a placeholder 1 so it helps us with our rise over run. So I'm going to actually pause and work it out, and then we'll compare. All right, so if you need to pause this video and kind of look over my work, you can, but I'm going to walk you through it. We're going to subtract 1x from both sides. We're left with a negative 2y. Make sure you bring down that negative because that's what we're going to do when we divide next. We're going to divide by a negative 2. Now because this is an inequality and we're dividing by a negative, we have to remember that our sign goes from less than to greater than because we're dividing by that negative 2. And when you simplify this, we'll be left with a negative 2 for our y-intercept. Our slope will be 1 over 2 because the 2 negatives became positive. But don't forget that our opposite slope goes back to that negative 1, negative 2 that we had before we simplified it. So it's the same thing. And then from here we can see that our new inequality symbol is going to be a dashed line because it doesn't have the equal to underneath it. So dashed, not solid. And because it is greater than, we're going to say above. And we're going to shade above the negative 2, which is our y-intercept. All right, so now that we have everything right here, let's go ahead and graph it out. All right, so as you can see, this is what my line looks like. And I am shading above because everything above that positive 2 is in this direction. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and take everything that we wrote down for the second inequality and go ahead and graph it out and see if we can visibly see the double shaded region. All right, so as you can see, I have graphed it out. Remember that this line right here is a dashed, not a solid line. So if you need to go back and fix that, please fix that, or write that this is supposed to be a dashed line. And we are shading above, so here's the negative 2. Everything above is over here, so we're shading on top of that graph. We can see the 4 different regions. So we can see that this is a no solution region because these points will not be true for either one of these lines. We can see the green section that is only points that would be true for the second one, but not the first one. This little section right here would only be true for the first inequality, but not anything else. And our solution set, the points that we're looking for that would be true for both of these inequalities, would be these ones right here. Okay, so with that being said, this is how our graphs are supposed to look. Please be careful when you're solving and remember when to flip that sign, and don't forget to make dashed lines when we're supposed to make dashed lines. So I think those are the mistakes that are usually the ones that are made for this section right here. All right, I hope these examples have helped, but we do have another section of word problems that we need to go over. So I will see you guys in the next video.